Hi guys, this is Vase with my first ever YouTube vlog. So why did I make it and why now, right? कहानी ऐसी है कि I moved to Canada 1 year ago, and since then one of the most common question I've been asked is what's the PR process? पैसे कितने लगते हैं? कितना time लगता है? So I thought why not just make a video. So what is PR या permanent residency क्या होती है and what you can actually do with it? So PR is basically a permanent visa status through which you can live, work, study in Canada. You also get most of the benefits that Canadian citizens get, and most importantly, you actually are eligible for Canadian citizenship after living here for some time. In this video particularly, we will be talking about Express Entry process, and within Express Entry there are multiple streams like provincial nomination, federal skilled workers, and Canadian experience class. Express Entry is basically a points-based system for Canadian immigration where a candidate gets points based on their education, work experience, English language skills, and also on the basis of their adaptability to come to Canada. Which includes basically if you already have some siblings here, or if you have a Canadian degree, or if you have prior Canadian experience. So before we move on to the process of how to apply for PR, I just want to give a disclaimer that I'm not an immigration consultant or a lawyer. Whatever I'm sharing is basically purely my experience because I did the process myself. It's mostly online, so it's not like you have to do a lot of legwork there. You might have different kind of scenarios, you might have different specific situation. So always do your research, go to a consultant, authorized legal consultant if you need specific legal advice. So I will divide the overall process into 3 different phases. One is basically when you're thinking about applying for Canadian PR, so pre-application phase. Then once you have kind of thought about it and you have gathered some of the information that you need, so that's going to be the pre-ITA phase when you create an online profile but you're still waiting to get your ITA. And the last phase is going to be post-ITA. So if you have that cutoff score and hopefully you get an ITA, what happens after that? So let's start with the first phase, which is the pre-application phase. This is where basically you're thinking about applying for Canadian PR, maybe just gathering some information. You don't know how the process looks like, but one thing that I will recommend everyone to just ask yourself is why do you want to move to Canada? At times we see a lot of our friends, colleagues, and people around us moving to Canada, but we don't have our own reason to move there. So make sure you're asking yourself that questions, you have your priorities. You can always connect with people who are already here to get some insights and some experience, so that will help you a little bit in terms of making your decision to move to Canada. So let's assume that you have finally made your decision to come to Canada. What now? So there are a couple of things that you want to do before you even start your application. So you might want to start with checking your eligibility on the CIC's website. So your education background or degree that you have, your IELTS scores, your age, and a couple of other factors that contribute to this particular eligibility check. So based on all these factors, you get a score called CRS score. The government of Canada conducts draws very frequently, and if your score is high enough, you get an invitation to apply. So once you have checked your eligibility and you know that you're eligible, there are 2 basic things that you need before you put in your online application. The first thing is going to be your IELTS test for English competency, and the second thing is going to be your ECA, which is basically assessment of your education documents. And obviously both these factors actually contribute to your CRS points. So the better English language score that you have on IELTS, the higher your score will be on CRS. And similarly, if you have like more degrees, if you have 2 bachelor's degree, or if you have a master's degree or a PhD degree, the more points you will get on CRS. The thing that you need is basically minimum 1 year of professional work experience. The more experience you have, the more points you will get. So you get maximum points on 3 years of experience, but you need to have 1 year minimum experience if you want to apply for Canadian PR. So once you have all these things, you can actually make an online profile and start your process. It's a very simple process. Everything is online. You just fill a simple form. You enter your IELTS score, you enter your details of the education assessment, and you enter the details of your work experience and all that. And basically you enter that pool of applicants. Once you have created that profile, you're into the phase 2 of the application stage. This is where you are just waiting to get an ITA, and if you have a high enough score, you might just get the ITA soon enough. And if your score is low, probably you might have to wait a couple of draws. So let's assume that if you have a low score and you're just waiting there to get an ITA, and the current score is hovering around 480, 470, your score is somewhere around 440 or 450, there are a couple of things you can do to improve your CR score. The first thing that you might want to try is improve your IELTS score, retake the test, prepare more if you have some area of improvement there. The second thing that you can do, even though it's a long-term solution or a long-term strategy, but you can actually explore into the option of getting a second degree or maybe a master's degree. One important thing to note here is your CR score is also impacted by education and IELTS score of your spouse. So if they haven't maxed it out yet, make sure you both are actively working to improve the score overall while you're waiting to get your ITA. So by this time you must have spent like 500 Canadian dollars per applicant. $280 will go into your IELTS testing and approximately $220 आपको लग जाएंगे अपनी ECA कराने के अंदर. This is where the final phase of the process starts, which is post-ITA. Once you get the ITA, now you have to submit all your documentation, get the medical examination. In terms of the documentation, what you will require is copies of all your education documents, the reference letters from your employers. You will require police certificates, which is actually a very painful process to get, especially if you have lived somewhere outside of your home country. So for police certificate, if you have lived anywhere for more than 6 months, then you need to have the police certificate for that area. One more thing you'll have to provide is the proof of funds, because you will be moving to a new country. You need to provide enough evidence that you have funds to support yourself once you move here, and that amount actually depends on the number of family members you have. So if you're moving as a single applicant, you need approximately close to 13,000 Canadian dollars. If it's, for example, a family of 3, you, your spouse and a child, then it's close to 20,000 Canadian dollars. So for more details on how much money you need, you can go to CIC's website and check that. Once you've submitted all the information and documentation, all you have to do is just wait. Sometimes they get back to you requesting for additional documentation, and that is why it's very important that you're doing it right for the first time. The PR application processing timeline is standard 6 months as per Canadian government's website, but honestly it can take all the way from 3 months to 12 months. So don't worry if you don't hear back in 6 months. For my case personally, it took almost like 5 months. Once everything is verified and completed, you will get a request for submission of passport, and honestly that's about it. You will get a PR visa on your passport, and all you have to worry about now is make sure you go to Canada before your medical expires. The validity of medical examination is 1 year from the date you had the examination, so make sure that you're traveling to Canada before that. This was a very quick snapshot of how Canadian PR process looks like. I can tell you right now there's a lot of other detail that is involved, so make sure if you have any questions you're commenting below. Thank you so much for watching. This was my first ever YouTube video, so make sure you like and subscribe.